What if I told you that the Bible familiar to us might be missing some of its most crucial details, the story of creation, the lives of the patriarchs, and even the very laws of God? The Book of Jubilees, preserved in the Ethiopian Orthodox Bible, claims to fill in those missing pieces, revealing lost stories and offering a deeper understanding of God's divine plan. But here's what's fascinating. This book was banned from most of the Christian world. Why? Today, we're diving into the mysterious Little Genesis, an ancient text of 50 chapters, to uncover why it was excluded from the traditional Bible and what hidden truths it contains. Jubilees holds forgotten details of the Genesis story, presenting a cosmic vision where angels, sacred time, and divine commandments were passed down to humanity. Even more astonishing, the book declares that the calendar humanity follows today is wrong, claiming that God himself designed time with a sacred structure few still follow. So why did the early church reject this ancient text? What truths did it reveal that were considered too bold, too dangerous for mainstream faith? The Book of Jubilees begins with a retelling of creation, but it goes far deeper than the Genesis we know. According to this text, when God created the world, he not only brought life into existence, but also established the very architecture of time, aligning it with his divine order, the origin of what it calls sacred time. Unlike the traditional calendar humanity relies on, Jubilees introduces a 364-day solar calendar, overseen by heavenly angels who govern the cosmic cycles of the universe. This wasn't merely about counting days, it was about living in perfect alignment with God's will. A divine pattern of 4 seasons, each with 91 days, ensuring that every festival and Sabbath always fell exactly when it was meant to, a perfect, sacred rhythm, one humanity has long forgotten. In the book of Genesis, the story begins with God creating the earth. But the Book of Jubilees paints a far broader picture. Before the world even existed, the angels were created on the very first day. Each was given a divine purpose, some to govern the movement of the heavens and the earth, others to serve as messengers and keepers of God's eternal law. They didn't just watch over humanity. They maintained the cosmic order, ensuring that the sun, the moon, and the stars followed the sacred paths God had ordained. For God commanded the sun to keep its proper course according to the divisions of the seasons. Jubilees 2:9. According to Jubilees, when humanity loses harmony with God's time, chaos follows, a theme that echoes throughout the entire book. One of the book's most debated claims is its defense of the solar calendar. It insists that only the solar year reflects the divine order, unlike the lunar calendar used by many ancient cultures, even by early Israel. Jubilees describes a 364-day solar year, divided into 4 seasons of 91 days each, 13 perfect weeks per season. This system ensured that every Sabbath and every festival always fell on its proper day, never drifting out of sync. Remarkably, this calendar is nearly identical to the Ethiopian calendar still preserved today by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which keeps a 13-month year, with the final month Pagum adding 5 or 6 days to align with the solar cycle. In contrast, the book warns that following a lunar calendar, irregular and unstable, leads to spiritual confusion and disobedience to God's order. There will be those who observe the moon, but they will corrupt the seasons and defile the days of testimony. Jubilees 6:37. Thus, returning to the solar calendar, according to Jubilees, is returning to divine harmony, the rhythm God built into creation itself. Jubilees also reaffirms the 6 days of creation, but adds a profound dimension to the first Sabbath. God didn't merely rest. He sanctified the seventh day as an eternal law, blessing it for both humanity and the angels. The Sabbath became the foundation of time, a cosmic principle tied to the Jubilee cycle of 49 years, symbolizing rest, release, and renewal for the earth, for humankind, and even for the heavens themselves. He sanctified the seventh day and blessed it forever as a sign of holiness for all his works. Jubilees 2:21. Through this, the Book of Jubilees doesn't just retell creation, it reveals the hidden design of sacred time itself, the divine rhythm keeping all of creation in harmony with God's eternal order. According to Jubilees, after creating Adam, God gave him the very first commandments: to keep the Sabbath, to remain pure, and to follow the laws of marriage and worship. These divine laws were delivered through angels and passed down as part of an everlasting covenant between God and humanity. Unlike Genesis, where Adam speaks directly with God, Jubilees introduces the angels, especially those called the angels of the presence, as mediators who taught Adam and Eve about holiness, sacrifice, and morality. On the sixth day of the second week, we brought before Adam all the beasts, cattle, birds, and every moving thing on the earth and in the waters, each according to its kind. Jubilees 3:1-2. This interaction reveals that God's law was never human invention. It was part of heaven's own order, delivered through celestial beings. Adam was told to keep these laws forever, just as the angels themselves obey them in the heavenly realms. It raises a profound question. Could it be that God's commandments, passed down through angels, existed long before Moses and the 10 Commandments? And what might humanity rediscover if we return to those ancient divine laws given at the dawn of creation? After Adam and Eve's fall, Jubilees expands on the story of Cain and Abel. While Genesis simply tells us that Cain killed his brother, Jubilees goes deeper, describing it as the first great violation of the heavenly law, a sin that carried lasting spiritual consequences for all humankind. Though Cain was cursed and cast out, the book emphasizes that righteousness endured through Seth, Adam's third son, a man depicted as pure and faithful, instructed by angels to uphold the divine commandments. From Seth's line, the covenant between God and humanity continued, leading ultimately to Noah, the one destined to renew that sacred covenant after the great flood. The story of Noah and the flood in the Book of Jubilees. The story of Noah and the great flood is familiar from the book of Genesis, but Jubilees gives it a deeper layer of meaning, not only about Noah's salvation, but also about a new covenant God established with him, a covenant of purity, righteousness, and faithfulness to divine law. Before the flood, the Book of Jubilees offers a more detailed account of humanity's corruption, especially emphasizing the Nephilim, the offspring of fallen angels and human women. While Genesis 6:1-4 mentions them only briefly, Jubilees describes how these giants spread sin and violence across the earth, leading God to cleanse the world through the great flood. And lawlessness increased upon the earth. All flesh corrupted their ways. All corrupted their orders and began to devour one another. Jubilees 5:2. This decay came not only from humankind, but also from the influence of the fallen angels who taught forbidden knowledge and disrupted the natural order God had created. God's response was powerful. He sent the flood to destroy wickedness, yet preserved Noah and his family because they lived righteously. After the flood, Jubilees reveals that God didn't just promise never again to destroy the world by water, he also established a new covenant with Noah. This covenant included laws of purity and sacrifice, later passed down to Israel so that humanity could remain holy and avoid repeating the sins of the past. Noah was taught to keep the Sabbath, to offer sacrifices, and to maintain purity of body and spirit, just as Adam had been instructed. This covenant marked a new beginning for humankind, emphasizing the importance of faithfulness to divine law to prevent future judgment. The laws of sacrifice, later formalized in the Law of Moses, actually originated in Noah's time as part of his covenant with God. Abraham in the Book of Jubilees. When we reach Genesis 12, the Bible introduces Abraham, the man called by God to leave his homeland for Canaan. But Jubilees takes us further back, into his youth, portraying Abraham as a courageous man living amidst idol worship. His father, Terah, was a worshipper of false gods, but Abraham rejected the pagan traditions around him. And he said, "Father, tell me, what are these idols you worship?" And when he saw they were only figures of stone, Abraham burned them before everyone and fled into the wilderness. Jubilees 11:16-17, 12:1. While Genesis highlights Abraham's obedience to God's call, Jubilees presents him as a spiritual revolutionary, a man who shattered idols, defied false religion, and paved the way for God's chosen people. The greatest difference between the two books is that Jubilees claims Abraham followed divine laws long before Moses. While Genesis focuses mainly on the covenant of circumcision, Jubilees shows Abraham keeping the Sabbath, offering sacrifices, and obeying sacred laws, suggesting that the law of Moses wasn't new, but a restoration of eternal principles established since creation. According to the Book of Jubilees, God's law wasn't introduced in Moses' time. It was revealed from the very beginning, starting with Adam through the angels. Abraham received these commandments from heavenly beings and was called to observe them as part of his sacred covenant with God. And he was taught by the angels concerning what was written on the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 12:25. Where Genesis portrays Abraham as a man walking a personal journey of faith, Jubilees presents him as part of a cosmic plan, guided by angels following divine laws that govern both heaven and earth, including the Sabbath, laws of purity, and the worship practices that Moses would later formalize in the Torah. The Covenant of Circumcision, a cosmic law. One of the most sacred moments in Abraham's life is the covenant of circumcision. In Genesis 17, it's described simply as a sign of the covenant, but the Book of Jubilees declares it to be a cosmic law, written on the heavenly tablets since the very creation of the world. This law is ordained for all generations forever. It cannot be changed in its appointed times, and it cannot be omitted even for a single day in 8 days, for it is an eternal law, written and ordained on the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 15:25. According to Jubilees, circumcision isn't merely a physical ritual. It is how humanity aligns itself with the divine order of God, participating in the same laws that govern the angels in heaven. It is part of the cosmic design engraved upon the celestial tablets, where the principles that rule both angels and mankind are inscribed. The binding of Isaac, the battle between good and evil. The story of the binding of Isaac, Akedah, found in Genesis 22, 1-19, is known as a test of Abraham's faith. But the Book of Jubilees unveils a deeper layer, portraying it as part of a spiritual war between light and darkness. According to Jubilees, this test wasn't just between Abraham and God. It was initiated by Mastema, a figure representing Satan, who urged God to test Abraham in hopes of making him stumble in faith. Yet the angels intervened, and God allowed the trial only to prove that Abraham's faith would triumph over evil temptation. And I stood before him and before the prince Mastema, and the Lord said, "Command him not to lay his hand upon the lad, nor to do anything to him, for now I know that he fears the Lord. Jubilees 18:10. In Jubilees, this event is more than a personal test. It's a cosmic confrontation between light and darkness. Abraham's unwavering faith becomes proof that righteousness prevails over the powers of evil. While Genesis presents this as an intimate trial between Abraham and God, Jubilees expands the story into a cosmic narrative involving angels, celestial powers, and the eternal spiritual war between good and evil. Jacob and Esau, a prophecy of two nations. In Genesis 25:23, God reveals to Rebekah that her twin sons, Jacob and Esau, would become the fathers of two nations, and that the older shall serve the younger. But the Book of Jubilees broadens this prophecy, showing it as more than a family rivalry. It is part of a divine plan, where Jacob is destined to continue Abraham's righteous lineage, while Esau becomes the symbol of rebellion. Jubilees emphasizes predestination. Jacob was chosen in his mother's womb to bear the Holy Covenant, while Esau was born with a nature opposed to God's design. Isaac and Rebekah were even given heavenly insight into their sons' destinies. Two nations shall be separated from your womb, one people shall be stronger than the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Jubilees 1913. Cf. Genesis 25:23. In Genesis, their conflict revolves around Jacob's cunning and Esau's temper. But in Jubilees, every action, even Jacob's deception, is part of a divinely orchestrated plan, fulfilling the will of heaven. Esau, the symbol of rebellion. One of the most striking differences between Jubilees and Genesis lies in how Esau is portrayed. He isn't just the elder brother who lost his birthright. He becomes the ancestor of a nation that opposes God's chosen people. Jubilees reveals that Esau's descendants, the nation of Edom, would rise against Israel, fulfilling the prophecy that the older shall serve the younger. And Esau took his wives, his sons, and all the possessions which he had acquired, and went to the hill country of Seir, and dwelt there. And Esau became a nation, and they oppressed the children of Jacob. Jubilees 37:1, cf. Genesis 36:8. From that time, Esau, that is, Edom, dwelt in the mountains of Seir, becoming a lasting symbol of rebellion throughout biblical history. According to Jubilees, Esau's rebellion wasn't just personal. It carried spiritual and national significance, representing the eternal conflict between righteousness, Jacob, Israel, and rebellion, Esau, Edom. Jacob, the chosen keeper of divine law. In Genesis 27, Jacob receives his father Isaac's blessing, becoming the patriarch of the 12 tribes of Israel. But according to the Book of Jubilees, Jacob was not only blessed, he was also entrusted with the sacred laws passed down from Abraham through Isaac to preserve the covenant between God and his people. In Jubilees, Jacob isn't merely the heir of blessing. He is portrayed as the guardian of eternal law, a symbol of the righteous lineage standing firm in the cosmic struggle between good and evil. After Jacob received the blessing, Jubilees recounts that God and his angels appeared to him, revealing the divine laws that he and his descendants must keep. These included observing the Sabbath, living in purity, following the sacred calendar, the cosmic order of time that Moses would later codify in the law, Torah. Jacob was given the holy responsibility of preserving these commandments, ensuring that his lineage, the people of Israel, would remain faithful to God's covenant. And God appeared to him by night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give to you and to your seed. and your descendants shall be as the stars of heaven. Jubilees 27:23, cf. Genesis 28:12-15. In Jubilees, Jacob's vision of the ladder reaching into heaven is more than a promise of blessing. It is a confirmation of divine stewardship. Jacob is chosen to guard the heavenly law, the eternal order that governs both heaven and earth. He is not merely the heir to Isaac's birthright, but the keeper of the eternal commandments, directly connected to the celestial tablets mentioned throughout the book. The conflict between Jacob and Esau, a symbol of spiritual warfare. The Book of Jubilees goes far beyond the personal rivalry between Jacob and Esau. It expands the story into a prophetic vision that the nations descending from Esau would continually oppose the lineage of Jacob, representing the cosmic division between righteousness and rebellion in God's divine order. This conflict, according to Jubilees, isn't about bloodline disputes. It is part of the cosmic war between good and evil. Jacob stands for faithfulness and obedience, while Esau symbolizes worldly defiance against divine purpose. And Jacob and his sons went down into Egypt with Joseph, but the children of Esau remained in the land of Edom. From that day forward, enmity existed between the two peoples forever. Jubilees 45:3 RCF, Genesis 33:16. In Jubilees, Esau and his descendants, the nation of Edom, become the embodiment of opposition to God's chosen people. The struggle between Israel, Jacob, and Edom, Esau, is depicted as an eternal spiritual conflict, echoing through all of history. And in Jubilees' apocalyptic vision, this battle continues until the end of days, when righteousness finally triumphs over the powers of darkness. The birth of the 12 tribes, a predestined divine order. In Genesis, we learn that Jacob had 12 sons through Leah, Rachel, and their maidservants: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin, who later became the fathers of the 12 tribes of Israel. But the Book of Jubilees adds a profound spiritual layer. Their births were not merely the result of human circumstance, but part of a divine plan woven into the sacred calendar of heaven. The timing and sequence of each son's birth were already recorded on the heavenly tablets, in perfect alignment with the cosmic order established by God from the beginning of creation. And the wives and maidservants of Jacob bore him 12 sons, each at the time appointed by God, and their destinies were inscribed upon the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 28:12. Genesis 29:31-30, 30:24. Thus, in Jubilees, the formation of the nation of Israel is not simply a matter of human lineage. It is part of a cosmic divine design. Every event, every person, and every moment had been foreordained by God to prepare his chosen people and their redemptive mission for the world. While Genesis presents the human side of Jacob's family and the growth of the tribes, the Book of Jubilees unveils the heavenly dimension, that the 12 tribes were not just descendants by blood, but the fulfillment of a predestined divine plan, the foundation of the cosmic order and of God's covenant people in the history of salvation. Reuben's sin and the sacred replacement. One of the most striking moments in Genesis is the story of Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, who lost his birthright after committing a grave sin. Genesis 35:22. However, Jubilees expands on this story, explaining that Reuben's act was not merely a moral failure, but a violation of the divine law, laws that had been established since the dawn of creation. Because of the sin of the firstborn Reuben, he was not reckoned in the inheritance. Judah was chosen to rule over his brothers, and Levi was chosen for the priesthood forever. Jubilees 33:10 cf. Genesis 49:3-4. According to Jubilees, Reuben's sin disrupted the sacred order. Therefore, God stripped him of leadership and appointed Judah and Levi in his place, not by chance, but as part of the divine cosmic plan. Judah was chosen for kingship and leadership, while Levi was set apart for the eternal priesthood, serving as a bridge between heaven and earth. The priesthood of Levi, an eternal command. In Scripture, the tribe of Levi is chosen for priestly service, with Moses and Aaron as its most prominent figures. Exodus 28. But the Book of Jubilees goes even deeper, declaring that Levi's priesthood was not established in Moses' time, but had existed eternally, written on the heavenly tablets as part of the divine order before the world was even created. And Levi was set apart for the priesthood forever, to offer sacrifices and to mediate between the people and the Lord, for this had been ordained upon the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 32:17, cf. Exodus 28. According to Jubilees, Levi is not merely a representative of a tribe devoted to worship. He is a divinely appointed mediator between humanity and the celestial realm. His priesthood carries cosmic significance, linking the heavenly order with life on earth, ensuring that divine harmony is maintained between God and his people. The cosmic meaning of the Levitical priesthood. Through the lens of the Book of Jubilees, the Levitical priesthood is revealed as far more than a religious institution. It is part of an eternal divine design inscribed on the heavenly tablets, which contain God's eternal blueprint for humanity. This affirms that every lineage, office, and law within Israel was preordained before creation, and that the tribe of Levi was set apart forever to serve as priests, maintaining the sacred connection between humankind and the Creator. While Genesis and Exodus focus on the Levites' role during the time of Moses, the Book of Jubilees emphasizes that their priesthood had been ordained since the foundation of the world. This means the priesthood was not a response to history, but a part of the divine cosmic order itself, established long before the giving of the law at Mount Sinai. The 12 tribes, guardians of God's law. In Genesis, the 12 sons of Jacob become the patriarchs of Israel's 12 tribes, each receiving a portion of the Promised Land. But the Book of Jubilees gives their mission a spiritual dimension. They are not only inheritors of land, but guardians and transmitters of the divine law handed down from Abraham and Isaac. According to Jubilees, each tribe carries a unique cosmic assignment, a divine stewardship over the eternal laws written on the heavenly tablets. The 12 tribes were entrusted to uphold the sacred order established by God, serving as stewards of his covenant and keepers of his law. And God said to Jacob, "These are the laws appointed for your sons and their descendants forever, written on the heavenly tablets, that they may walk in them and live." Jubilees 29:6, so Genesis 49. Thus, in Jubilees, each tribe becomes a guardian of divine order, their actions carrying spiritual weight within God's cosmic plan. The tribes of Israel are not only historical families, they are living symbols of humanity's covenantal role within creation. The betrayal of Joseph, a cosmic transgression. In Genesis 37, Joseph's brothers, driven by jealousy, sell him into slavery, beginning a story of suffering and redemption. But the Book of Jubilees views this event on a much deeper cosmic level, not merely as a family tragedy, but as an act of rebellion against the divine order itself. According to Jubilees, Joseph's betrayal was a great sin, a violation of the heavenly law, disrupting the divine harmony God had ordained, and bringing consequences that would echo across generations unless repentance took place. and his brothers sold Joseph into slavery, and their sin was written upon the heavenly tablets, for they had transgressed the eternal laws. And it was decreed that their descendants would suffer until they repented of their great sin. Jubilees 34, 4-9. Unlike Genesis, which focuses on human conflict and forgiveness, Jubilees frames the betrayal as a rupture in the cosmic order, a sin recorded in heaven, carrying spiritual consequences beyond human time. The theological meaning of the event. In the theology of the Book of Jubilees, every event in Israel's history, every sin, every act of repentance, every war and reconciliation is woven into God's grand cosmic design. Blessing and judgment, faithfulness and rebellion, all are inscribed on the heavenly tablets where the eternal laws of God and the order of the universe were established before creation. Thus, in Jubilees, Joseph's betrayal is not just the beginning of a redemptive story. It represents a temporary fracture in the divine order, a wound in the fabric of creation itself. Yet through divine mercy and human faithfulness, that wound is healed over time, as all things are ultimately restored to the order preordained by God. The Book of Jubilees transforms the story of Joseph into a vision of cosmic redemption, a story not just about human forgiveness, but about the restoration of harmony between heaven and earth within God's eternal plan. Sin and destiny inscribed on the heavenly tablets. The Book of Jubilees emphasizes that every human action, even sin itself, is recorded on the heavenly tablets. When Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, their betrayal did not merely break family bonds. It fractured the divine order established by God. This act, Jubilees explains, was directly linked to the future suffering of Israel in Egypt. And it was written on the heavenly tablets that Joseph would rule over Egypt, and through him the sons of Israel would be delivered from famine, yet they would also be enslaved in Egypt for a time. Jubilees 42:2. According to Jubilees, their betrayal was the spark that ignited God's redemptive plan. Through that event, God set in motion both the exile and the Exodus, a divine sequence already decreed in the heavenly realm before it ever unfolded on earth. Joseph, the chosen instrument in God's divine plan. In Genesis 41, Joseph is portrayed as a wise man gifted with the ability to interpret dreams, rising to power through his skill and insight. But in the Book of Jubilees, Joseph's glory does not come from human talent. It comes from God's eternal design, already written on the heavenly tablets. His entire life, betrayal, imprisonment, and exaltation unfolds exactly as preordained by God for the redemption of Israel. And the Lord sent his angels to guard Joseph on his way to Egypt, that he might not perish, for his life was precious before God, and his path had been inscribed upon the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 34:21. Joseph's story in Jubilees is not about chance or circumstance. It is a divinely composed symphony in which every note, every trial and triumph serves the greater purpose of redemption. The role of angels, guardians of divine destiny. One of Jubilees' most distinctive features is its portrayal of angelic involvement in Joseph's journey. While Genesis focuses on Joseph's relationship with God through dreams, Jubilees reveals that angels were sent to guide and protect him along the way. These celestial beings watched over Joseph's every step, intervened at critical moments, and strengthened his faith so that he could fulfill his heavenly mission. They were not merely guardians, but agents of divine will, ensuring that every event followed the precise order written on the heavenly tablets. Through this lens, Joseph's life is not ruled by fate or randomness. It is part of a cosmic orchestration where angels, humanity, and divine purpose work together in perfect harmony. Joseph and the prophecy of the Exodus. Unlike Genesis, which ends with Joseph's family settling peacefully in Egypt, Jubilees looks beyond that moment, seeing Joseph's life as a prophecy of the coming Exodus. His death does not close the story. Instead, it opens the next chapter in the divine plan of deliverance. And Joseph said to his brothers, "I am about to die, but God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land, to the land he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Do not be afraid, for all these things have been written and sealed upon the heavenly tablets." Jubilees 46:9, cf. Genesis 50:24-25. For Jubilees, Joseph's words carry cosmic weight, foretelling not just a national liberation, but the next movement in God's eternal symphony of redemption. The cosmic meaning of Joseph's story. In the Book of Jubilees, Joseph is not merely a man of faith and forgiveness. He is a prophetic figure, a vital link in the cosmic plan of redemption. Every hardship he endured, betrayal, suffering, and eventual glory, was part of a divine design written long before humanity existed. Joseph's life becomes a symbol of a universal truth, that all suffering has purpose, all trials are woven into God's eternal plan, and ultimate redemption arrives in the exact moment God has ordained. What seems like human tragedy in Genesis becomes, in Jubilees, a cosmic drama of salvation, where history itself follows a script inscribed on the heavenly tablets. Thus, Israel's enslavement in Egypt was never a random historical accident. In Jubilees, it is portrayed as a predestined stage in God's vast celestial plan, a plan written in heaven before time began. Slavery, a predestined part of the divine plan. In the Book of Jubilees, the enslavement of Israel was not a tragic accident of history, but a foretold stage in God's redemptive plan. When Joseph brought the Israelites into Egypt to escape the famine, this event was already written in the heavenly script of divine destiny. And it was written on the heavenly tablets that they would be oppressed in Egypt, and that the Lord would deliver them with great power and mighty wonders, that his name might be glorified. Jubilees 48:1. Thus, the period of slavery was not meaningless suffering, but a refining process, a time of spiritual preparation leading to Israel's deliverance. Through their trials, God was shaping his people to receive the law of Moses and to renew his sacred covenant with them. The cosmic battle between good and evil, Mastema, and God. Jubilees expands the story of the Exodus into a cosmic spiritual war. Here, the figure of Mastema, often identified with Satan, appears as the chief of rebellious spirits, the one who hardened Pharaoh's heart and increased Egypt's cruelty toward the Israelites. And the prince of Mastema stood against them, seeking to destroy them through harsh bondage and to make them forsake their faith in the Lord. Jubilees 48:9. In this view, Israel's slavery becomes more than a political or social condition. It is a spiritual battlefield where the angels of God contend with the forces of darkness over the faith and endurance of his covenant people. The Exodus, therefore, is not just a liberation of bodies, but a war for souls, fought on a cosmic scale between light and shadow. The Exodus, the restoration of cosmic order. The Book of Jubilees portrays the Exodus as an event precisely marked on the divine calendar of God. Every moment, every miracle, every sign was foreordained and inscribed on the heavenly tablets, revealing the perfection of God's eternal plan. And it was written on the heavenly tablets that on the 14th day of the first month, at the appointed time, the Lord would bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt. For that day had been sanctified since the creation of the world. Jubilees 49:1. Thus, the Exodus was not merely a historical deliverance, it was the cosmic restoration of divine order. Time, law, and redemption converged in perfect harmony, revealing the sovereignty of God over history and the universe itself. The theological meaning of the story. While the book of Exodus focuses on the miracles and plagues as displays of God's power, the book of Jubilees unveils a deeper truth. Every act, every sign, and every judgment reflects the divine architecture of the cosmos. The struggle between Mastema and God's angels, the suffering of the Israelites, and their ultimate deliverance, all are interconnected parts of an eternal plan of redemption. In this vision, the Exodus becomes not just an act of liberation, but a theological and cosmic event, a moment when God restores the order of creation, freeing humanity from sin and realigning them with the sacred rhythm of divine law and time established from the beginning. Even the 10 plagues of Egypt in Jubilees are reinterpreted as a cosmic confrontation, not merely punishments for Pharaoh, but a divine war against the false gods of Egypt. Through these acts, God demonstrates his supreme authority over all creation, affirming that the Lord of Israel is the one true sovereign of heaven and earth. The plagues, a clash between God and the gods of Egypt. According to the Book of Jubilees, each of the 10 plagues was not merely a physical punishment, but a spiritual assault against the false gods and dark powers that ruled over Egypt. The actions of God are portrayed as a divine overthrow, a dismantling of the authority of pagan deities, and a revelation of their helplessness before the Creator. And the Lord sent down the plagues, each one a blow against the gods of Egypt, weakening their powers and shattering the dominion of darkness that had enslaved his people. Jubilees chapters 48 to 49. Summary. Thus, the 10 plagues were not only instruments of judgment meant to humble Pharaoh, they were cosmic victories, proof of the ongoing war between good and evil, between the Lord and Mastema, the prince of rebellious spirits. Mastema, the manipulator of darkness. Jubilees reveals that Mastema, a being often equated with Satan, was the hidden force behind Pharaoh's hardened heart. He and his host of evil spirits stirred up Egypt's oppression, seeking to undermine God's plan of redemption. And the prince of Mastema stood against them, seeking to destroy them with cruel bondage and to make them forsake their faith in the Lord. Jubilees 48:9. Yet every scheme of Mastema failed. The angels of God intervened at every turn, and each plague became a heavenly triumph over the powers of darkness. And the Lord sent the plagues upon Egypt, not only to judge Pharaoh, but to show that the gods of Egypt were nothing before him. For they were false powers, unable to stand before the Almighty. Jubilees 48:11. In Jubilees, every confrontation between Moses and Pharaoh symbolizes a spiritual duel, a battle between the living God and the false gods of the world. The Exodus, the fulfillment of the cosmic plan. Every detail of the Exodus, its timing, its miracles, and its outcomes, was, according to Jubilees, recorded beforehand on the heavenly tablets. The liberation of Israel was part of the divine calendar, foreordained since the creation of the world. And it was written on the heavenly tablets that on the 14th day of the first month, at the appointed time, the Lord would bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt, for that day had been sanctified since the beginning of creation. Jubilees 49:1. The Exodus, therefore, was not merely a moment in history. It was the manifestation of cosmic order restored. Time, law, and grace converged to reveal the perfect harmony of God's eternal will. The Law of Moses, an eternal record in heaven. After the Exodus, Genesis and Exodus describe Moses as the man who received the law on Mount Sinai. But in the Book of Jubilees, the law was not created at Sinai. It was already written on the heavenly tablets long before the world began, and the law and the testimony were ordained and written on the heavenly tablets, created before all things to guide the generations of the children of Israel forever. Jubilees 6:17. This transforms the law of Moses into a cosmic law, part of God's eternal order, revealed at the precise time appointed in his divine calendar. The giving of the law was not a new covenant, but the earthly unveiling of a heavenly decree. The patriarchs, keepers of the law before Moses. One of Jubilees' most striking claims is that the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, had already kept the divine commandments long before Moses. They observed the Sabbath, offered sacrifices, and followed the laws of purity and righteousness, because these were revealed to them through the angels of God. According to Jubilees, the Mosaic Law was not a human invention, nor a historical adaptation. It was the restoration of the original divine order, a sacred system written into the fabric of creation itself. It applies to both angels and mankind, binding heaven and earth under one eternal covenant. Conclusion. The law, the bond between heaven and earth. In the Book of Jubilees, the plagues, the Exodus, and the giving of the law are all interconnected, each a vital link in God's cosmic plan of redemption. From the battle against Mastema to the revelation of divine law, every event serves one purpose: the restoration of the original order that was established at the dawn of creation. Thus, the Book of Jubilees is far more than a retelling of Israel's history. It is a cosmic narrative, a vision of the universe in which every biblical event, creation, slavery, deliverance, is part of a divine design, recorded on the heavenly tablets, revealing the supreme glory of God across heaven and earth. In Jubilees, the giving of the law is portrayed not as something new in Moses' time, but as the restoration of an eternal order, a reawakening of the divine harmony that existed before the world began. 1. The patriarchs, guardians of the law from the beginning. According to Jubilees, the sacred commandments of God were first revealed through angels to the patriarchs, Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The law did not begin at Mount Sinai. It originated in heaven, written upon the heavenly tablets. For Abraham kept the Sabbath, circumcised his sons, and followed the commandments of God, which were written on the heavenly tablets, and the law was revealed to him through the angels of the Lord. Jubilees 16:28. Abraham, therefore, is seen as the first keeper of divine law, observing the Sabbath, practicing circumcision, and upholding purity and righteousness. In Jubilees, Moses was not the creator of the law, but the messenger chosen to proclaim it fully, revealing what had already been written in eternity. 2. The cosmic calendar, the sacred rhythm of creation. One of Jubilees' most profound ideas is that of the divine calendar, a cosmic rhythm established by God himself. Time, in this view, is not a mere measure of days, but part of the spiritual architecture of the universe. To observe the Sabbath, the festivals, and the Jubilee years is to live in harmony with the heartbeat of heaven. According to Jubilees, the solar calendar of 364 days was the true and perfect system, for it ensures that every sacred day and feast occurs at the precise time ordained by God. Those who follow other calendars, such as lunar reckoning, lose alignment with divine order and fall into spiritual chaos. And the Lord said to Moses, "Write down for the children of Israel the laws concerning the Sabbath and the appointed times, for these times have been ordained on the heavenly tablets, and you must observe them exactly lest you err." Jubilees 50:2. In this theology, time and law are inseparable. Together they form the eternal structure of creation, preserved through the generations of God's covenant people. 3. The law, an eternal order for heaven and earth. Perhaps the most extraordinary claim in the Book of Jubilees is that the law of Moses extends beyond humanity. It governs both heaven and earth. Even the angels are described as keeping the Sabbath and celebrating the holy festivals before the throne of God. This means the law is not limited to human society, but is the foundation of the universal order itself. And the law given to Moses on Mount Sinai is eternal, to be observed in heaven and on earth. The angels keep the Sabbath, and the righteous shall observe these commandments forever. Jubilees 50:13. In this divine vision, the law is the bridge between heaven and earth, the covenantal thread uniting angels and humankind under one eternal design. Through it, creation is held together in harmony, and the will of God is reflected across every realm of existence. 4. The theological meaning of the law in the Book of Jubilees. In the Book of Jubilees, the law is not limited by time or nation. It is eternal and universal. To keep the law is to live in harmony with the rhythm of creation, walking in step with sacred time itself. To break the law is to disrupt the cosmic order, bringing chaos both to the soul and to the world. Thus, the Book of Jubilees presents the law of Moses, not as a local or cultural system of religion, but as a cosmic law, the sacred thread that connects heaven and earth, ensuring that all creation continues to function in purity and order, just as God ordained from the beginning. In Jubilees, the idea of the eternal law forms the very foundation of its worldview. Unlike traditional scripture, where the law is seen as the covenant between God and the people of Israel, Jubilees portrays it as a structural principle of the universe, a divine order governing both angels and humankind, established by God from the beginning. 1. The eternal law, the foundation of cosmic order. According to Jubilees, the law is more than a set of moral commands. It is the mechanism by which the cosmos operates. It is written upon the heavenly tablets, the divine blueprint that governs all creation. Even the angels observe the Sabbath, celebrate holy festivals, and keep the commandments of God within the heavenly realm. In this view, the law of Moses is simply the earthly reflection of the cosmic law, revealed to humanity at the appointed time in God's divine calendar. It is unchanging and eternal because it mirrors the very character of God, His righteousness, His holiness, and His perfect order. 2. The divine plan and the predestined timeline. Unlike Genesis or Exodus, which recount historical events in sequence, the Book of Jubilees teaches that every moment in human history, every act of rebellion, and every moment of redemption was predestined and recorded on the heavenly tablets before the creation of the world. And all that will happen to Israel has been written on the heavenly tablets, from their rebellion to their redemption, and the time appointed for their deliverance has been established long beforehand. Jubilees 23:32. According to this vision, the history of Israel, from disobedience and exile to restoration, unfolds not by human will, but according to God's divinely ordained timeline. All of redemptive history is the gradual unfolding of a plan already written in the heavenly realm, where time, law, and destiny merge into one eternal purpose. In the theology of the Book of Jubilees, the law is the heartbeat of creation, binding heaven and earth, angels and humankind, into a single divine harmony. It is through the keeping of this eternal law that the universe remains ordered, and through its violation that chaos enters the world. 3. The angels, executors of justice in the final days. In the end times, the angels stand at the very center of God's divine plan. They are His messengers and warriors, agents of both mercy and judgment, appointed to uphold divine justice across heaven and earth. And the Lord will send His angels to gather the chosen ones and to bind the prince of the evil spirits, casting him into the abyss until the time of judgment, when he shall be destroyed forever. Jubilees 23:29. When the time of judgment comes, Mastema, the prince of wicked spirits, will be bound and thrown into the pit, symbolizing the complete collapse of the powers of darkness. The angels of God will then separate the righteous from the wicked, gather the faithful, and execute eternal justice on behalf of the Almighty. In this way, the Book of Jubilees stands as one of the few ancient Jewish writings to describe the eschatological role of angels in such vivid detail, not only as messengers but as embodiments of divine power and justice in the ultimate war between good and evil. 4. The promise of restoration and the Messianic age. One of the most profound themes in the Book of Jubilees is the restoration of Israel. Though the nation once rebelled, was exiled, and suffered judgment, God has appointed a set time for their renewal. And the time will come when the children of Israel shall return to the Lord with all their hearts, and He will gather them from among the nations and bring them back to their land, as it is written on the heavenly tablets. Jubilees 23:26. This restoration is not merely political or national. It is spiritual renewal. Israel will be purified, their covenant with God restored, and they will be prepared for the coming of the Messiah and the eternal kingdom of God on earth. 5. The cosmic vision of the Book of Jubilees. Unlike the traditional scriptures, which focus primarily on Israel's earthly history, the Book of Jubilees unveils a cosmic vision, a universe ordered and sustained by divine law. Within this vision, the law is the foundation of creation. Time follows the rhythm of the divine calendar. Angels are the keepers and executors of justice, and the history of Israel mirrors God's redemptive plan for all humanity. From creation to final judgment, every event moves in accordance with sacred order, a universe bound by the eternal law of God, where nothing happens outside His will or the timeline He established before the foundation of the world. In Jubilees, the restoration of Israel is therefore not merely a historical prophecy or national hope, but a step in the cosmic redemption plan of God, written on the heavenly tablets since the dawn of creation. 1. Restoration, a link in the divine plan. Unlike prophets such as Isaiah or Jeremiah, who emphasize Israel's physical return from exile, Jubilees views that restoration as an inevitable phase in God's divine timeline. Restoration is the culmination of a cosmic order, when justice, law, and divine light are fully re-established upon the earth. Every event, creation, fall, redemption, and the final judgment unfolds according to the record already written in the heavenly archives, and all that will happen to Israel has been written on the heavenly tablets. from their rebellion to their redemption, and the appointed time for their deliverance has long been established. Jubilees 23:32. In this theology, history is not random. It is the unfolding of an eternal script authored by God Himself. 2. The Messianic Kingdom, the fulfillment of cosmic order. In the final age, Jubilees envisions the coming of the Messianic Kingdom, the reign of a divinely anointed king who will establish justice and everlasting peace. This marks the transition between two eras, the end of the present age, ruled by sin and chaos, and the beginning of God's kingdom, where His law is written upon the hearts of the righteous. And the Lord will establish His kingdom upon the earth, and the righteous shall rule with Him. For the law shall be written upon their hearts, and the wicked shall be cast into the lake of fire. Jubilees 50:13. In this final kingdom, Mastema, the leader of the evil spirits, will be bound and cast into the fiery abyss, along with all the powers of darkness. The Messiah will reign in righteousness and grace, restoring all creation to the divine harmony and holy order that God intended from the beginning of time. 3. The final judgment, the triumph of justice. The final judgment in the Book of Jubilees stands as the grand climax of the cosmic battle between good and evil. The wicked will be cast into the lake of fire, destroyed forever, while the righteous will be purified, rewarded, and live eternally in the radiant presence of God. It is the moment when divine justice is fully realized, when every distortion caused by sin is erased, and perfect order is restored. This vision mirrors the Book of Revelation in the New Testament, yet Jubilees places an even greater emphasis on the law and cosmic order, portraying them as the very heart of redemption and everlasting peace. 4. The recreation of the world, the law written on the heart. When the Messianic kingdom is established, the world will be made new, and the eternal law will be written upon the hearts of the righteous. There will be no more conflict, no more separation between heaven and earth, only one holy kingdom, where justice, light, and peace reign forever. The law shall be written upon their hearts, and they shall walk in His ways, for the Lord will dwell among them forever. Paraphrased from Jubilees 50. In this renewed creation, God's law is no longer engraved on stone. It becomes the living heartbeat of His people, binding heaven and earth together in perfect harmony. 5. Conclusion: the vision of a restored universe. The Book of Jubilees closes with a breathtaking vision of hope. A new creation restored in purity, an eternal law inscribed within the hearts of humankind, and a holy kingdom where good triumphs over evil, and justice and peace reign forever. This is not merely the conclusion of Israel's story. It is the fulfillment of God's cosmic plan, the eternal design in which all creation is united under His light, His righteousness, and His everlasting glory. Thank you for joining Deep Faith Stories. If this exploration of the Book of Jubilees and God's eternal plan has touched your heart, please remember to like, thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell, so you won't miss the next episode revealing more ancient mysteries, biblical revelations, and deep stories of faith from the Word of God. With Deep Faith Stories, we continue the journey of uncovering the hidden layers of Scripture, where light, truth, and faith intertwine within the divine plan of God for all humanity. May your faith be strengthened with every story we share. See you in the next episode of Deep Faith Stories.